live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest. I hope everybody has had a great week, staying strong and healthy and being productive, learning lots. Hi, Sammy. Good to see you in class. Everyone, this is a IELTS Task 2 writing class focusing on planning your essay and writing your introduction. This topic was requested by one of our members. Of course, members can request topics. This is a members chat class. Everybody is welcome to watch. Hi, Mohit. To become a member of our channel, just click the join button beside the subscribe button. If you don't see that option, just send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com and I can give you some further instructions. Hi, Beg John. Why the question mark? Or were you going for an exclamation mark instead? Students, this class is presented to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS, check us out there. And for the general version of the exam, check us out at gieltshelp.com. That's general IELTShelp.com. Yeah, that's what I thought you're going for, Beck. John is the exclamation mark. Hi, Michael Fan. Hi, Muhammad. Dr. Krishna Hina. Nice to see our members joining in on time. Everyone, this is our academic IELTS website here with the blue background. And you can click that big red button to join us there. Get our 6 practice exams. We'll have 4 more later this year, so there'll be 10 full practice exams. And our 100 hours of HD video lessons, fully interactive course, and of course an app for your phone as well. This is our general IELTS website, same idea, except focusing on the general materials. And you can click that big red button to join there. Hi, Dip. Hi, Rajveer. Roshni. Good to see so many members in today's class. That's fantastic. If anybody has questions, of course, send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. Students, today, task 2 for members. We're going to start that off. We're going to do listening parts 3 and 4. Of course, that's continuing from yesterday's part 1 and 2, where everybody can join the chat. And then tomorrow, we will finish this task 2, and we'll do some speaking with everyone for part 2. All right. Here is today's task 2 again. This was requested by one of our members. I thought it was kind of an interesting question for sure. Demands some good critical thinking. I can't remember who asked me to do this. So if that member is in the class today, just chime in and let us know that it was you who requested this topic. It was one of you. I know that. Can't remember who. All right, so let's read this question really carefully, okay? First step is first. Let's read it really carefully, try to get some clarity, try to visualize. It was Hemant. Okay, Hemant, thank you. So Hemant was the one who asked for this topic. So, and it was a good ask, Hemant. I like it. It's a good question. Okay, so here we go. Let's read this together. You should spend 40 minutes on this task. In many countries, youngsters from the age of 16 years are allowed to drive, vote, and even get married, while in some countries, they are not allowed. What, according to you, should be the correct age to permit such privileges? Explain your point of view and give relevant examples. All right. Kind of interesting question, for sure. I think it's a very big question for many cultures around the world. Okay, so students, before we get heavily into the planning, let's paraphrase this question as best as we can. So rewrite this question in your own words. Now, paraphrasing the question is not your introduction, okay? You only do this to clearly understand the question, get some ideas, get some vocabulary. You might use the information in your essay, but most importantly, it's to get a good idea of the question. Okay, so let's paraphrase this. Let's do this together. Good morning, Angelina in Brazil. It's afternoon for me, and I think for many of our other viewers, it's evening, so we're all at different times of the day. All right, here we go. So paraphrase, and then we'll compare. So all right, there's my paraphrase there. And let's take a look at yours. Good. I love, students, how a lot of you are very fast. I don't know if you're preparing these a little bit earlier before the class or you're writing them in real time. But for those of you who are writing in real time, hats off. You're doing it as fast as I am, which is fantastic. Okay. Beckjohn says, in many nations, many young people from the age of 16 years are permitted to drive a vehicle, vote, and wed, while in other republics, these actions are strictly forbidden for them. In your opinion, what age should be right for such opportunities? Nice paraphrasing, Beckjohn. Good job. Mohit says, in many nations, youth of age 16 years are allowed to drive, vote, and get married. In some countries, they are not. Nice, Mohit. Mohit, when you're practicing at home, and this is for everyone, also paraphrase the rest of the question so that you're really clear on what your task is. Hemant says, teenagers in many nations are permitted to do activities like driving, voting, and getting married. However, some countries have different policies. Okay, Hemant, that's good. Yeah, include the question. Neha, adolescents in many nations are permitted a driver's license, get voting rights, and are even allowed to tie the knot. However, in other countries, this is not allowed. Nice, Neha. Let's use some similar vocabulary as me. That's fantastic. Charlie says, some countries give permission to their citizens to vote and marry from the age of 16, whereas others cannot. Use the verbs there, Charlie. What is your opinion about this? According to you, what should be the correct age? Good, Charlie. I see you were typing quite fast to get some of that out. Good. Dr. Krishna says it is legal in some nations to drive, vote, and get married at 16. In the rest of the world or in other countries, it is not. We don't know what that means, the rest, Dr. Krishna. So until 16, it's good. After that, a little correction. What is your opinion about this situation? Explain your side and give appropriate examples. Okay. Yeah, and I see, Charlie, you had the rest of the question there. Rajveer says, in many nations, young people reach the age 16 and are permitted to drive, vote, and get married, while in other countries they are not. What is the correct age to do such activities as per your opinion? Rajveer, according to and as per is the same. So don't use according, as per, just as per your opinion. It's really nice. I love always, Rajveer, how you're introducing these new expressions and vocabulary. That's great. So one more time, Rajveer, that second comment. What is the correct age to do such activities as per per your opinion. Take out the according. Okay. Roshni says, in most countries, higher authorities allow marriage and driving and voting for teenagers, although some countries do not. What is your opinion? When is it the best to have these privileges? Good, Roshni. Little correction in the end. Abhishek. In many countries, children from the age of 16 are allowed to drive, vote, and even get married, while in a few countries they may not be allowed. What in keeping you must be the proper age to permit such privileges? Abhishek, correct your second comment. It doesn't really make sense. First ones are okay. All right, now, let's see. I'm going to read the rest of them too here for just this paraphrasing, everyone. And then I'm going to do selective reading for the other parts of the writing, okay? So, Sammy says, in most nations, youngsters from the age of 16 are permitted to drive, vote, and even get married, whereas in some other nations, they are not permitted. What, according to you, must be the right age to allow such privileges? Explain your thoughts and give proper examples. Very nice, Sammy. Work on paraphrasing even more, but that's definitely a good start, Sammy. It's accurate. Ferdav says, in a lot of governments, teenagers from their 16th birthday have the chance to obtain a driver's license, have a vote, and tie the knot, while in other parts of the world, they do not have such rights. Okay, Dip Butt says, in some countries, premature age of 16 are given the rights to drive, vote, and even marry, while in other countries there are different laws. I'm not sure, Dip Butt, if premature is a correct word there. It depends what we mean by maturity. You will have to explain that later. Chaitra Nag says, in some societies, the legal age for securing a driver's license, voting, and getting married is 16 years. However, in other nations, this is not considered the appropriate age limit. State your opinion of the right age to acquire these benefits and give examples. Nice, Chaitra. I did a little bit of adjusting, but overall quite good. Angelina says, around the world, young people aged 16 years have the permission to drive, vote, and contract matrimony. According to your opinion, what ought to be the most appropriate age? Describe your opinion by underpinning these with practical examples. Angelina, very nice, very good paraphrasing. So a lot of exchange of the original grammar and words, yet still makes sense. Very nice, Angelina. Good job. I can tell you really put a lot of thought into how you can make it your own. Thumbs up, Angelina. Nice. Hina says, according to the law, some countries, the adult age is 16 to get married and drive too, while some other countries do not agree with that. Good start, Hina. Keep going. All right. Here is what I wrote. Let's see. Yeah, it's okay. All right. In a lot of nations, teenagers from the age of 16 can operate a vehicle, make an official vote, and tie the knot. Tie the knot is an expression to get married. However, in other nations, this is not permitted until later. What, in your opinion, ought to be the right age to allow for such affairs? Explain your position and give examples. Okay, so we have some clarity there. Now, this is an interesting paraphrase here. Youngsters to teenagers. Of course, what's the age of, what's the teenage years in English when you say teenager? What is that? What years are those considered to be? Teenagers, just for interest's sake. And of course, this is starting to lead into some visualization. So, teenagers. What does that mean? What age is that? Yeah, very good, Dr. Krishna. 13 to 19. It's all the teens, right? So 13 to 19 because you have the teen, right? Whoops. Let's different control command. Yeah, so 13, 14, 15, all the way to 19. Those are the teenage years. It's the teenage years. What is another way to say that? So here, we're talking about the topic, right? The topic here is 16-year-olds, let's say. Okay, or the adult age. Adolescent, yeah, adolescent, very good. So teenagers are also called adolescent. They're pre-adult, right? That's basically what adolescent means, is pre-adult. Okay. All right, so the topic here, it's kind of twofold. It's a little bit tricky. The topic is really adult age. We're talking about the legal age or the adult age. Yeah, very good, Hassan. I like how you said that. Yeah, legal age. Okay, legal age, and specifically the question targets this 16-year age limit. Okay, all right. So let's talk about that a little bit. So that's our topic. Okay. We need to talk about the what, the why, and the how. So let's ask the first question. What is the first question to ask here? So if we're thinking about the topic, the legal age, or the age of 16 or adult age, what is a good first question here? So when you're thinking about your answer to this essay question and you're planning your paper real quick, youth Hemant is not good, and juvenile Niha is not good because that covers a very broad range. So youth or juvenile, it's all the way from age 5 to 21. Okay, so juvenile is usually a little bit earlier Niha. Hi, Karen. Awesome, I'm happy you joined in. Okay, so Abhishek says, what is legal age? That's a good question, okay. Elena, that's a good one. So what is maturity? Okay, what is the adult age? Sure. Let's ask a simpler question. Okay, so I like your questions. So Elena, Rajveer, I like your questions. But before we get into that, let's ask a simpler question here. So this is why, Hemant, I really liked how you suggested this, because there's something unique about this task 2 concept, and you'll see that in a moment. So I would actually, if I were planning this essay, before I started asking what is the age of maturity, what is the legal age, what is the adult age, I would ask, what is a 16-year-old? Okay, why? So why would I rather ask what is a 16-year-old than what is adult age? What do you think? Why would I prefer this question to what is the legal age when I'm planning this essay in my mind to give a really good answer? And planning for this task 2, students, is absolutely key. It could easily be the difference of more than a band score for this writing question. Okay? So why do you think I feel that this question is better than asking what is the age of maturity? It's not a bad question either, but I think this is a better question. You have to ask yourself, why does the question ask this specific age of 16? So why does the question target the 16-year-old? Why not 18? Why not 20? Why not 14? Why does it target 16? Okay, so Elena says because the age is in the question, and that's a good, okay, so also, well, if you're thinking critically, let's see if anybody has figured this out. Michael Fan says because it's specifically mentioned in the question. Beckjohn says it because it's a person who hasn't really finished school yet. They're just getting close to it. Remember, students, remember always. Because it's quantitative, right? So when you're planning your essays, this is a tip here, okay, for the future. Whenever you're confronted with an essay question, you're planning your thesis, okay, it is, so this is a tip, or should say a strategy. It is often, or it is usually, simpler and better to think of concepts in a quantitative or from a quantitative foundation than a qualitative. This is often the goal of university argument. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So what I wrote here for this strategy, does it make sense? So remember what I said in the past before, the top-down, okay, and down-up strategy? Okay. Does anybody remember that? I think some of you have learned this from me, the top-down, down-up critical thinking strategy, where you can think about the age of maturity. So you can think general, right? Okay. General would be like the age of maturity. And then you can go to more specific. My cousin Sam, 18, driving a car. Okay, so that would be your specific. Okay, so this is the funnel here. This is your funnel going from general to specific. Sometimes, like for a topic like this, it's very challenging to think from the general. How do we know that? Well, because even governments have difficulty with this question. That's why the age of maturity is different in different countries and different governments. So this is a very challenging question. What is the age of maturity? So obviously it's quite challenging to think about a good answer from the general. It's easier to think about the specific. And in this case, the IELTS Task 2 question is trying to help you by mentioning that specific age of 16. Does that make sense? So this is why it's better for you to start with that question rather than starting with the what is the age of maturity, even though that is the topic. Okay, so that is the right idea for the topic. Okay, does that make sense, everyone? So if you're stuck, if you're like, oh, I'm having a tough time because I haven't really thought about this and I don't know why some countries allow an earlier age and why some countries don't, then approach it differently, right? Think about the more specific and then think what, why, how, okay? So now we can start with this, okay? So now let's go back to this what question, all right? Let's jump back to this question of what is a 16-year-old? Okay. So what is a 16-year-old? And a couple of you have given me some answers, okay? It is, or he, she is a teenager, near high school graduation. Okay. What else do we know about a 16-year-old? So what else comes to mind when you think of a 16-year-old? Okay. Haman says college starter. I don't think so yet, Haman. Most students don't start college till 18-ish. Okay. So they're usually near high school graduation. So they're going to be grade 11 or grade 12. Okay. Picture a 16-year-old. This is where you want to visualize students. So, okay, they're entering adulthood. Okay, so going through mental changes. Sure, give me some more information. They're not a child anymore. What else are they experiencing? And I'm guessing, okay, so Boomy, good. So they're still going through a process of sexual maturity. Anybody know what that's called in English? That process of maturing from a girl and a boy into a man and a woman? Anybody know? It starts with a P, that word. So still... Yeah, Haman says, okay, college in India starts from the 11th class, so that's why you said it. Yeah, in North America it's not, so of course that affects it. Yeah, I thought that might have been part of the reason. Yeah, so still going through sexual maturity. Anybody know? Yeah, there you go. Nice. So a lot of you do know that word. It's called puberty. Exactly. So yeah, so coming kind of to the end of it, but definitely still going through puberty. So it's arguable that a 16-year-old is not quite there yet. I think most of you would agree with me that they're still maturing sexually. Absolutely. What else comes to mind? A 16-year-old, okay? Think outside of school. So think aside from school, think aside. So you can think of their physical maturity, their mental maturity, and their social maturity, right? This is the thinking outside the box. So remember to think broad, right? In this case, think of physical maturity, mental maturity, and social maturity. So when you think of social maturity, what comes to mind? Okay, so Baekjun says starting to date. Okay, that's fine, yeah. They're starting to make their own decisions. Where do they live? Okay, I'm trying to get you to think about these without me giving you the answer quite yet. So Hassan says they want to be independent, but where do most 16-year-olds live? Where do most 16-year-olds live? In your opinion. I know in the West where they live. Yeah, so Haman says they're probably living with their parents, right? Most 16-year-olds, I mean, I'm not that familiar with Indian culture, but I would imagine that most of them still live with their parents, okay? Some of them probably starting to get independent, but most still living at home with parents. Okay. All right. So, now, let's go to the next question, the why question. Okay. So, what would be a good why question here? What would be a good why question here? Give me the why question. So what why question comes to mind thinking about the topic and the controlling idea? The controlling idea, of course, being what is the right age to allow people to vote, drive, and get married. So what is the why question? Very good. So Haman says why? Why should 16-year-olds be permitted to vote, drive, and marry? So what's the answer to that? Why do you think? So why would some countries say, hey, if that's what you want to do, go ahead, do it, no problem. Okay, so let's stick with the 16-year-old, right? Why should the 16-year-old be, or 16-year-olds be permitted to drive, vote, and marry? Elena, they're mature enough. Sure. You might want to give a more extended answer than that. I can see it's getting a bit brighter here, so let me help us out here. All right. Elena, give me a little bit more here. I don't think this is quite enough. So they are mature enough to what? Okay. I think there's missing information here to make that a complete idea. Maksud says because they have their own passport at their age. I think people have passports much younger age than that in many places. Okay. Mohit, yeah, so that's good. So Mohit says they are mature enough to make independent decisions. There's still something missing from this, and I want you to visualize and figure that out because it's very important for you to have the right ideas here to write a good essay so you can really get those high band scores, okay? I find that a lot of students have fairly good English. You can get band 7s and 8s, but just not enough information. So I really want you to develop your speed of thinking and the quality of information here. So let's stick with this. So they are mature enough to make independent decisions. And what else? There's still something missing from that statement. Okay, and I'm looking to see if anybody... Chaitra, you're close. You have the right word in there, but you need to use it a little bit differently. Yeah, there we go. Hina, very nice. So if everybody's looking at Hina's response, she's got the right approach. That's the missing element, Hina, and I like how you saw that, okay? So notice what Hina said. So Hina says they are mature enough to make independent decisions and take responsibility for those decisions. Okay, so that would be one of the concepts that comes to mind. So why should a 16-year-old be permitted to do this? Because they're mature enough to make independent decisions and take responsibility for those decisions, right? That's the big one, all right? Dip, you're close. I really like how Hina hit the nail on the head. Mature enough to take responsibilities. Okay, and the other one that comes to my mind, of course, is they can become greater contributors to society by voting and driving, right? Hey, if I'm 16 and I decide that I'm going to drive a taxi, I got different options for work now. I can drive a truck, a food truck, right? So I can contribute more. I can do more. I can contribute more to help build society, right? So that's another one that comes to mind. Now, the how would be examples. Okay, so when you think of the how here, so how does a 16-year-old make independent decisions and take responsibility? So here, what I'd like you to do is think of a positive and negative example. Okay. So again, I'm walking you through the planning process here. So think of a negative and positive example of how a 16-year-old can make an independent decision and take responsibility. Give me whatever comes to mind here. So one that's kind of like, hey, that's great, that's positive, and one that's like, okay, that's negative. So think of both sides of the coin here. What would be a good example of a 16-year-old making a decision and then taking responsibility for it? Okay, Bekjan says to start working and help their parents. Now, Bekjan, a 16-year-old can do that without necessarily driving or voting. So can you be more specific? Okay, so Charlie, good start. So Charlie's giving us a negative here. So Charlie says reckless driving. Driving leads to a car accident. And finish that idea, Charlie. It's not a complete idea. It's not a complete example yet. Okay, you need to finish that idea. Let's look at the positive as well. Okay. So not explanations here, students, but examples. So Rajveer says a 16-year-old teenager is driving a taxi to commute passengers. Yeah. And help with the family budget, right? All right. What is the taking responsibility? So reckless driving leading to a car accident, that's not quite taking responsibility yet, right? So what would be taking responsibility here? Okay, what's the missing part from Charlie's suggestion? Reckless driving leads to a car accident, and what happens? In the perfect or in the ethically correct system, what would happen here? Okay, just give me a second, students. I'm just going to adjust the light in the studio while you give me that answer. So Michael Fan says, and they get punished and they go to jail, right? So that would be, okay, there. So I'll leave it like that, and they go to jail, okay? So they're tried as an adult and they go to jail. So the reckless driving leads to a car accident and they are tried as an adult and go to jail. So that would be the negative, right? Okay, so now we have the right idea here. So we're starting to wrap our heads around this. So from this, the what, why, how here, you can now decide whether you think 16-year-olds are appropriate to handle these kinds of situations, right? Or not, or if you think that, maybe statistically, proportionally, this should be a little bit later of an age, right? So, decision time. Is a 16-year-old mature enough for these privileges or not? Or not? If not, what is the right age? And then you can just take an age, okay? So what's your answer there, students? Just for fun. So Sammy says, it might not be the correct age. Bekjan says, I think maybe a little bit too young, right? Okay. Yeah, probably a bit young. Okay. FYI means for your information. In Canada, the legal driving age is 16. I had my learners when I was 15. Now it's become a little bit more challenging with graded driver's licensing. The age of voting is 18 in most provinces in Canada, and the age of drinking and buying cigarettes is 19. Okay. The age of drinking in the United States is 21. The age of driving in Japan is 20. Okay. So most countries, or many countries, definitely think that voting, drinking, definitely older. Angelina says in Brazil it's 18. Yeah, it looks like in most parts of the world they're moving the driving age up as well. So, yeah. Okay, so 16 is a bit young. The right age is, let's say 19, 18, 19, 20, whatever. It's really just an arbitrary number. You're thinking a couple years more, right? So at least until they're more independent and so on. Okay, good. So now, thinking about this information, come up with your thesis. Okay, so come up with a thesis. Now remember, students, when you're doing all of your thinking and planning, even if you're doing it fast, so in 5 minutes, 3, 4, 5 minutes, read the original question before you come up with your thesis, okay? So read the original question after your 4 minutes of planning before writing your thesis. So let's do that now. Let's take a look at our original question, not your paraphrase, but the original question, okay? So in many countries, youngsters from the age of 16 years are allowed to drive, vote, and even get married, while in some countries they are not allowed. What, according to you, should be the correct age to permit such privileges? Explain your point of view and give relevant examples. Okay, give me your thesis statement, so your statement of the argument for your introduction, students, and I want direct points here. So I want you to state what you think is the correct age and why. Okay. All right, so I'm going to write my thesis statement and then we'll compare, okay? All right, so let's see what you've come up with. Elena says there are various countries that think age 16 is not good for driving and marrying. However, I think people age 16 are still immature to take decisions and responsibility. I think 18 will be more acceptable. Elena, take out the future participle will, okay, from that sentence. And it's also a little bit confusing, Elena. So there are various countries that think age 16 age for driving and marrying is okay. However, I think, yeah, okay, Elena, I see that. A couple of corrections there, Elena. Your grammar's a little bit off, but the idea is okay. All right, so you're focusing your body paragraphs on immaturity and responsibility, which is good. Okay, you can definitely work with that. All right. Hassan says, it is a debatable topic whether the legal age is the right time to vote, marry, and drive a vehicle in many societies or not. I believe that it is different from one community to another, and it is highly related to social background and the way they live. Hassan, I see where you're going with that. I would only attempt that argument if I were writing a 2,000-word college or university paper. I would not do it for a 300-word IELTS paper because it's going to take you too much time and too many ideas to express what you're saying there clearly. Okay? Does that make sense, Hassan? So I don't think it's bad what you're saying, Hassan. I think you have a good idea there, but I don't think it works for a 300-word essay in the IELTS exam in 40 minutes. Okay? So careful with that. All right. Angelina says, people recently entering the adult age at 16 years are permitted to perform critical matters like matrimony, voting, and driving around the world. However, lots of discussions have been undertaken in society. As for myself, I believe youngsters around 16 are too young, and 18 years would be more proper for such important matters. Angelina, that's really wordy. Okay, you need to express yourself in a much shorter way. You're saying a lot, but you're actually saying very little. So try to say more with less words. Okay, Angelina? So say more using less words. All right? Okay. Let's see. Abhishek says, in my opinion, the correct age of the child for driving, marriage, and voting should be 19 or above, because at 16 years, children's chances for reckless driving leading to car accidents and going to jail are higher, and they are too immature. Okay, Abhishek, don't go into such detailed examples in your thesis, okay? Keep it more general. So because at the 16-year-old age, teenagers are irresponsible and immature. Irresponsible and immature. And then you can go into those details in the body paragraphs, okay? Sammy says, in my opinion, 19 years of age is the perfect time for teenagers to have these privileges because 16-year-olds are not mentally mature enough to make correct decisions and take responsibility. Okay, Sammy, good. I like how you picked up on the voice of the essay. Yeah, it's definitely first-person voice, students. So you can see that in the question. It's really asking for what according to you. It's a very clear first person, according to me, in my opinion, okay? It's definitely a first person essay. No question about that. Here is my thesis statement. Again, the question looks quite complex, but the answer doesn't have to be so tricky. So I believe that the right to vote, drive, and marry require both mental and social maturity, which is not yet attained by most 16-year-olds, and therefore these privileges are better reserved for those 19 and older. Okay, so see how I kept my thesis fairly short. Now, what do you think will be my body paragraphs? So what will be my body 1, body 2, according to my thesis? Okay, and again, members, there's more of us now, which is fantastic. We're getting a lot more perspectives on these ideas, and that's great. But that also means that I have to be a little bit more selective with whose work I read, okay? And I promise I'll try to read different students at different times, okay? So Lepouge says mental and social maturity. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so mental and social maturity. And within that, I can put in the ideas of responsibility, irresponsibility, exactly. Okay, and I can put in 16-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and the differences. So body one will be mental maturity, 16-year-olds versus 19 and older. Body two will be social maturity, 16-year-olds versus 19 and over. Absolutely. I'm glad that you picked that up. Okay. So mental maturity, social maturity. And I can compare 16, 19-year-olds in each of those paragraphs in that regard. Okay. All right. So now the introduction. In the introduction, let's start with a hook. The hook, of course, should include the topic. The topic, of course, here is age of maturity. Okay. So give me some hooks, students. Give me some hooks. Yeah, Boomy, you could. So Boomy's asking, can I go with physical and social maturity? Yeah, you could. And Boomy, if I were to write a really long essay, again, probably not a good idea to attempt this in the IELTS in 40 minutes. I might go with physical, mental, and social maturity and do 5 paragraphs. So you could do that. Okay. Yeah, Hemant, you could do it like that. So Hemant is asking, could I do 16-year-olds in body paragraph 1, mental social maturity of 16-year-olds versus body paragraph 2, mental and social maturity of 19-year-olds? Yeah, absolutely, Hemant. You could do it like that as well. That's not a bad structure at all. So that's good also, Hemant. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Pooja, you're giving us some advice there that could be useful in our body paragraphs. Sure. Let's try some hook statements here, okay? So Charlie says, teenage is the most crucial period in human life. I think that's a bit off topic, Charlie. We're not specifically talking about teenagers. We're talking more about the age of maturity. Okay. So Elena says, age is the most important factor for taking a decision for the individuals and society. It's a little bit unclear, Elena. Bekjan says, age of maturity is different in various countries. I like that, Bekjan. Okay. All right. Karen says, the age of maturity varies in different parts of the world. Yeah, very good. So again, students, hook should be kept fairly simple, okay, and clear. Karen Veer has a really nice hook. So the age of maturity varies in different countries around the world. Okay? Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. Hina, yeah, there are various laws about maturity around the world. Yeah, very good, Hina. Hina, laws, just small l, okay, just small l. Rajveer, also very good. Rajveer says it's difficult to identify the age of maturity. Yeah, very good. It's challenging to identify the age of maturity. Very good, Rajveer. I agree. That's a great, it's a fact. We know it's true. It's interesting, and I want to read more. Yeah. Hassan says the legal age is an unsettling question for adolescents throughout the history of humanity. Very nice, Hassan. It's a little bit fancier, careful with mistakes, but it's very good. Okay, I like it. All right. And then comes the background. Okay. So the background, members, I'm going to leave for you. Please finish that before tomorrow. Tomorrow we want to work on the body paragraphs and the conclusion. Okay. The background should be quite straightforward because of all the planning that we did. So this is where that planning comes in really handy, and this is where you're going to save a lot of time because you're going to be very fluent in your ideas and in your writing, right? So the background, basically define for me what we're talking about. What is the age of maturity? Hint, hint, taking responsibility, etc. And then the importance of the question, hint, hint, contributing to society. Okay, so that information is in our planning. So please finish that before next class. We're going to look at a couple examples at the start of class tomorrow. Get that done, and then of course we'll continue with the body paragraphs, and our thesis statement is here. So all we really have to do with the thesis to finish the introduction is copy paste, right? Okay, and then tomorrow comes body 1, body 2, and conclusion. Okay, so that's what's happening there. All right, members, fantastic job. Okay, I could see how as we were progressing through the class, the gears of your mind started to really twist and turn, and you started to visualize and clarify your thoughts around the age of maturity and how that works and what is required. So good job there. To all of our viewers, I saw that we had a lot of viewers in this class. That's really great that you were able to join. In the next class, in 30 minutes, you can also join the chat. So in the next class, everybody will be able to join the chat, and we will be looking at listening parts 3 and 4, continuing yesterday's exam. So hopefully I'll see all of you there. Of course, if you want access to all of our HD video lessons, join our premium packages on our websites for academic students. That's aehelp.com. And for general students, it's gieltshelp.com. You're very, very welcome, everyone. And thank you again, Hemant, for that great question. I look forward to finishing that essay tomorrow. Bye for now, and see you in 30 minutes for listening.